So Metroid Dread. When this game was initially announced during a Nintendo Direct, it was met with expected fanfare. I mean, a brand new Metroid game for the Switch. That's not a remake or a remaster. The first true 2D Metroid in almost 20 years and a direct sequel to Metroid Fusion. So of course the Nintendo and Metroid fans were super excited for this, and as somebody who just recently got into 2D Metroidvanias, I was also looking forward to Samus's next adventure. So the game came out and I purchased it day one. It wasn't long until people started calling this game one of the best experiences this year. Now that I completed Metroid Dread for myself and explored a great deal of the map, let's see if this game is worth all the critical acclaim that the game is getting. Let's get into it. So Metroid Dread was developed by Mercury Steam in collaboration with Nintendo. Now when we're looking at Mercury Steam's track record, they were the team behind the Castlevania Lord of Shadows games and more recently the 3DS remake of Metroid 2 Samus's Return, which was also met with positive reviews from the Metroid community. So now that we're playing a brand new Metroid experience on the Switch, let's see if this is worth all the praise and a great warm-up to Metroid Prime 4. So with this review, I don't really dive into the story of the game because, well, to be completely honest with you all, I don't really play Metroid for the lore or the story. Yes, I love Samus as a character that focuses on exploration and the space themes, but in terms of following the story from game to game, not really something that piques my interest. So if you were looking for a full breakdown of the plot, this review will not be that, but instead I will be focused on what I played Metroid for, the actual gameplay. So first things first, the controls. Samus has never felt better in the 2D space. She is super fast, agile, and has some really awesome moves to keep the exploration kinetic. I love the slide maneuver. I love Samus's default run speed and being able to run and shoot in all 8 directions. Of course, in classic Metroid fashion, as you discover more suit upgrades, your mobility increases. Things like being able to run normally underwater without slowdown, the speed boost, and the space jump, so much more. The combat is also really fun in Dread. Not only does Samus has her usual tools, blasters, beams, missiles and such, but there's also some melee options with the counter and parry maneuver, which I'm a huge fan of. Now I believe these moves were introduced in the remake of Samus's Return, but I'm a fan. When you see an enemy flash, that is your opportunity to counter, so make sure you have that timing down. Now, one of the main mechanics or sections in this game is the enemy robots, which we all saw in the trailer for this game. Now, these robots are designed to stalk Samus throughout her adventure, but don't worry, it's not like Alien Isolation or Resident Evil 7 where they're stalking you throughout the entire map, but there's only just a section or a portion of the map that they do this in. Either way, the game really brings home the feeling of tension where you're being chased by one of these things, and this was actually some of my favorite moments that the game had to offer. Now, in order to defeat these robots, which you will need to do in order to progress, you have to find a room that has the Omega Cannon. Once you have that cannon, the game switches perspective for you to aim at the face of the robot. Once that bot goes down, you obtain a new item that you can use to move forward in your progression. Now in terms of the exploration and progression, well, if this is your first Metroid or Metroidvania title, I'm just gonna say this. Do not give up. These games do not hold your hand and you will not know where to go, but that's the fun of it. If you played previous games in the series, you already know how this works. But for newcomers, I can see how this can be a little bit overwhelming and shocking. All I'm gonna say is keep exploring, shoot and bomb everything. You'll be fine. Trust me. Now, of course, the game has all these positives, but I can't say this game is perfect. There were some things that I was not too fond of. Again, this review is my opinion, so with that warning, let's get into it. First thing, as much as I enjoyed the exploration and discovering new things, I wasn't a fan of the overall setting of the game. The areas, they just didn't really do much for me. I get the game is called Metroid Dread and it's supposed to be a darker game in tone, but the environments were just to me. It didn't really make me want to revisit them. Just nothing really stood out and many of the areas just really started to blend and mesh together for me throughout my playthrough. The next thing, which is highly subjective, the bosses and their damage output. Now look, I love the battles themselves and all the action and cinematography that went into the cutscenes. That's great. But when it comes to how hard these bosses hit, it felt a little bit on the unfair side. Even with all the suit upgrades and the energy tanks, I felt the hits were way too damaging and the bosses would take you out quick. Now I know this is highly subjective when it comes to difficulty and the game is really about recognizing patterns, but man, So what can I say about Metroid Dread? Well, it's a fun, kinetic adventure with tons of ground to cover and to explore. Samus has never controlled better, and I love the boss fights minus the extreme damage output that some of them have. Now in terms of where I rank this game, I can't say that I enjoyed this more than Super Metroid or Zero Mission. I think those games are still better overall Metroid experiences and the best for newcomers to get into the series. Dread, even though it's fun, I don't think this game I will be revisiting anytime soon. It just doesn't have that replay value for me. Do I recommend this game? Well, of course. If you like Metroidvanias, you're gonna love this. But if you're brand new to the series or the genre, I would recommend giving Super or Zero a mission try before you hop into this. With that being said, I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.